Thank you for having me. This is my first time at an Alliance meeting, so it's absolutely fantastic to be here. And I just wanted to start by saying that was so emotional to see the March of Faces, and I think it was really perfect by the soundtrack to have someone living with MND to bring that to life, so that was incredible. I just want to first start by thanking you for having me here today. It is such a privilege to be standing here talking about something that is so incredibly close to my heart. It is something that I sort of consider a David and Goliath story. It is about three strangers coming together. They were connected by an MND diagnosis, and they really wanted to come together to try and change the MND narrative. But more importantly, it is about the lasting impact they've had on our common fight. My name is Rebecca Daniher, and I'm Campaign Director at a small organisation in Australia called Fight MND. I'm also the daughter of the patron, Neil Daniher, who was one of the three founding members. Sorry, as I get the AV to work. Beautiful. Now, to set the scene, I want to step back in time and tell you a little bit about my story. Firstly, my dad, Neil, he's an absolute force to be reckoned with. He was always an incredibly driven and determined individual who was relentless in his pursuit to achieve his goals. An elite athlete throughout his life, he played professional sport in the AFL, Australian Football League, and became one of the head coaches for one of these teams. So think in America, the NFL, in the UK, the EPL, this is our version of that sport. At 53 years old, he noticed some weakness in his hands, an occasional slurred speech. In 2013, after about a year of tests, of treatments for this and that, he was diagnosed with MND. I'll never forget sitting down with him when he told me what the doctor had said. Ever the protective dad, he delivered it in such a cavalier way, and I'll be honest, I had no idea what MND was, so I didn't think it was that bad. I sat down in front of the computer later that night and read in black and white, no treatments, no cure, 27 months, that there was really no hope on the horizon. The naive part of me considered, how could we send someone to the moon 50 plus years ago, but there were no effective treatments for this disease. Fast track a year later, in 2014, we saw the global phenomenon of the Ice Bucket Challenge, which raised $220 million worldwide. In Australia, we raised just over $1 million through this Ice Bucket Challenge, through 30,000 individual contributions. Everyone was so excited about the social media challenge. And whilst it raised a bit of awareness about ALS, for us in our society, MND was little known. For example, in 2014, the percentage of funding for research through the Australian National Health and Medical Research was just 0.6%. This simply wasn't enough. The Ice Bucket had brought a glimmer of hope, but we needed to do more. Sick of hearing about ticking off the bucket list to make the most of the limited time that he had, Dad was determined to find a way to fight back. He came together with two individuals who had a shared MND connection. There was Dr. Ian Davis, diagnosed at just 33 years old, a specialist in haematology as well as medical research. There was Pat Cunningham, who alongside his two little girls was watching his wife battle this disease. And so in 2014, Fight MND was born. They chose to fight back, knowing that this journey wasn't about themselves, it was always about others. They wanted to ensure that a father or a mother wouldn't have to sit down their daughters, sons, family and friends to tell them that was little hope. They chose to be disruptors to the current MND narrative to wrestle back control. They were just a small little organisation, 3 individuals, 2 of which had an MND, a terminal illness. And they would often joke that this wasn't the most sustainable business model. Regardless, they were 3 people with a singular, urgent vision to live in a world without MND. They brought a varied set of expertise and skills, but most importantly, they brought grit and determination, determined to have a go, that doing something was better than nothing. So we have a problem. What are we going to do about it? First, we were very clear on who the villain is in our story. We wanted to personalise MND, to give it a face. We didn't want it to be this ambiguous cloud floating on a periphery. Dad called it the beast, and it made it a tangible enemy that we could fight. Next, we knew that we needed 2 things when we battled this beast. 1, we need awareness. MND is a beast that keeps killing in the dark. We had to bring light to the beast. We had to expose it. Now, if we exposed it, what's next? We knew that we needed weapons to attack this beast, and the best weapons is research. Large, impactful, bold research. This takes a lot of money, a lot of money. So we knew that we couldn't do it ourselves. We had to build an army of people to help us take on this fight. So again, what do? We knew that we needed a few critical elements to be able to help us make a real impact in this fight. I'm going backwards. Apologies. We needed a platform. We needed a unique activation that would be fun and entertain. We needed to be really clear about who our audience was that we wanted to speak to. We needed to be ensuring that the message was to inspire, to empower people to act. We needed the message to be delivered by the right person. And lastly, we needed to provide a simple way for people to be able to get involved. Now, for us, the first element is a platform. We wanted to find a platform that would give us access to mass audience. And what better platform than the highest rated and attended game in Australia, the AFL, alongside a marquee game between two of the biggest teams in the league, one which Dad had coached for 10 years. But what to do? After seeing the success of the Ice Bucket Challenge, we wanted to test how we could scale this ice bucket to be worthy of a stadium of 100,000 people and a national broadcast of over 1 million. So we decided to invert the ice bucket. We bought a slide and a giant pool filled with 2 tons of ice to the arena. Next, we needed to be really certain about who our audience is going to be. We wanted to bring light and entertainment. We wanted to bring the light and the shade. We wanted to have fun in the face of this grim topic. So we brought 11 celebrities, and similar to the nominations, to slide down. Our audience we wanted to reach for the time being wasn't the large-scale corporate entities. It wasn't high net worth individuals. It wasn't the government. It was the mums and dads who were able to donate what they could, but they could do so on scale. We wanted to start a movement. There is a great quote by Howard Zinn. We don't need to engage in grand, heroic actions to participate in the process of change. Small acts, when multiplied by millions of people, can transform the world. We believe that people power could start a movement that would leave government and corporations to have no choice but to join in. Now to our message. It had 2 facets. First one, MND is not incurable, it is just underfunded. This spoke to the tiny portion of funding that we were receiving, the 0.6%. It spoke to the fact that so little people in Australia knew what MND was. It was an opportunity to educate a community that loved to back the underdog, the ones whose odds seemed so unbeatable, but here they were taking on the challenge regardless. And the final element is one that I believe brought us into the homes of millions of people that didn't have a direct MND connection. We broadened the cause to be beyond a specific disease. It was about how you face adversity. We will all face adversity in our lives. It's not if, but when. It is a connecting thread that allowed our fight against the beast to be something everyone could relate to. It can be summed up by one quote. Everything can be taken away from a man but one thing, the last of humans' freedoms, to choose one's own attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. We wanted people to feel inspired, not overwhelmed by the fight ahead of us. We wanted them to smile and feel like they were making an impact, that their donation, their purchase was making inroads to changing the future. To understand the effects that MND was having on families right around the world, and they could help bring hope back into their lives, and that was mighty powerful. We wanted them to feel that they're a part of a community, they're a part of a movement. So, who would deliver this message? Who would be the face of the campaign? You need someone with profile, someone directly connected to the cause. Now, I'd never say that there is any luck in an MND diagnosis, but we were lucky in the fight against MND to have someone like my dad willing to share his story within the community. Having earned a nickname of the Reverend from his coaching days for being able to weave an emotional story as well as his media profile, he was the perfect person to become the face of the campaign, the spokesperson of the cause. Now, the final element is a call to action. Originally, the focus of the campaign was to purely ask for donations. However, weeks out from launching the first campaign, our family came up with a simple idea, born from a desire just to help in whatever way we could. We wanted to provide the Big Freeze supporters with a uniform, a tangible way to show their support. And the Big Freeze beanie was born. The design of the beanie was around the vibrant cornflower blue, the colour of MND, and we received approval to produce 5,000 units. And I'll be honest, our volunteer committee expected us to possibly break even. There wasn't too much confidence in success. However, we never expected the flood of orders to come through. Juggling full-time jobs, we could sit around the kitchen table late into the night, handwriting every single parcel. But for us, it felt like every single beanie that we sent out was helping us in just a small way. By the end of the campaign, we'd sold in excess of 30,000 units, stripped all of our Australian producers of blue beanies, and seen a movement created. It became clear that the beanie was the supporters' badge of honour. It showed everyone that they were part of something bigger than themselves. We pulled all of these elements together and held the very first Big Freeze campaign in June 2015. Our hope was to raise $250,000, and at the end of the campaign, we'd raised $2 million. We've now just ticked over our 10 years, and the latest campaign, just held in June this year, raised $21 million over 6 weeks. We are so excited to be able to see that this campaign has brought over $100 million to our organisation to be able to invest. Now, before I talk about the evolution of the campaign and the impact that it's had, I'd like to share with you all a video which I believe encapsulates the Big Freeze.
I call it the beast. I personalise it because then I can fight it. There's no treatment, there's no cure. It'll try and kill me, and it'll try and kill me slowly, 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 slowly. It's about the 2 or 3 diagnosed today, and the 2 or 3 will be diagnosed tomorrow. The thousands will be diagnosed in the next year or so. It's about them. And I say to people, well, if I can't fight, if I don't fight the good fight, watch the people out there fight. We're a sneaky chance now, Robbo. We're a sneaky chance.
That's all we need, mate. That's all we need.
A sneaky chance to knock this thing over.
Like when you were 4 goals down versus Carlton at Princess Park, you're a sneaky chance.
Well,
Daniher forward.
I said to Mark,
3 goals in 5 minutes.
I said to Mark McCall that day, I said, mate, we'll win this. I'm fighting back, and it may get me, but this campaign will get it.
Now, the Big Freeze campaign has definitely evolved from its humble beginnings. No one anticipated that the beanie would garner the appetite that it did. After 5 years of sellouts with exponential year-on-year growth, we approached 2 major retailers in Australia who've partnered with us over the past 5 years. We now see the beanie stocked in every Coles supermarket, Coles petrol store and Bunnings hardware store. This is nearly 2,000 sites nationwide, our version of Walmart or Home Depot. The beanie now makes up 70% of the revenue of this campaign, and the quantity sits in the hundreds of thousands. The beanie has become iconic, and we see a sea of blue hit Australia each year. Community has always been at the core of the Big Freeze, and we launched the Do It Yourself Big Freeze campaign, which encourages the community, lovely photo there, encourages the community to get involved in their own way. So this could be as simple as ice bucket your principal, or get the community involved and slide down into a pool, a dunk tank. We've even seen shipping containers. Really, we've seen it all. We've diversified our revenue streams, and through our major partners, we've been able to activate supply collaborations. And this allows the community to be able to get involved in so many different ways. It could be as simple as having a chocolate block, drinking a can of Pepsi, or having an icy pole in the middle of winter. We have partnered with further AFL teams to nationalise the Big Freeze and taken it to a majority of states around Australia. One of my favourite parts of the campaign, I have to say, is the landmarks across the country turn blue on the weekend of the Big Freeze in a national moment to remember those that are currently fighting MND, but also those that have lost their lives. For us, this is one of our highest engaged posts. There's an outpouring from the community talking about their own personal stories. And whilst we want to enjoy the slight action, see celebrities dress up and get soaked on national TV, wearing our beanie with pride, the lasting impact of the big freeze has been the significant impact on the state of play for MND. Since our inception 10 years ago, the MND landscape has changed. 10 years ago, we didn't have a single Australian-led clinical trial. There seemed to be no hope that the beast would continue to take lives without resistance. But an army has risen and we are fighting back. And we've been able to invest $115 million into our cure and care initiatives. I'm going a bit over time. Another significant byproduct has been the elevation of MND and the ability for more people to be able to tell their stories. We started off with someone with profile telling their story, and we're being able to see people living with MND or caring for someone with MND being able to tell their own story. I recall a phone call I received from a lady in the Big Freeze, and she talked about how her dad had an MND diagnosis, but no one knew. He wasn't talking to anyone. He removed himself from his community. After seeing what was happening with the Big Freeze, he went away, bought a whole bunch of beanies and started selling them to his family and friends. It brought him back to the community. There is this great quote, "Society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they know they shall never sit." The founders of the Big Freeze campaign it wasn't about helping them. What they didn't know was the Big Freeze was going to be a catalyst for change in Australia, but also more broadly. It focuses on hope, on empowering the community, on laughter and storytelling. It has inspired a nation to pick up the mantle and fight for their mate who is in the biggest fight for their lives. It's created a movement that brings a smile to someone's face and has enabled us to make significant investments as we try to tame the beast before we can cure MND. So thank you.
Thank you. Hi. Okay. Thank you, Rebecca. This is so inspiring. I think everybody in this room and in the virtual audience is shocked and amazed. What have you done one beanie at a time, plus the whole campaign? I'm gonna open it up for questions. If anybody has a question here in the room or the virtual audience, this is the moment. Or comments, maybe. Virtual audience?
Sue wants to know, well, first of all, amazing story, she says, but can we get Big Freeze beanies outside of Australia?
We do ship them internationally, so absolutely, it's very important. And we've seen events in different places like London where we have a big freeze in the middle of winter, but in the middle of summer over there, but we do like to see how we can have a global approach.
Wonderful, thank you.
Anybody else? Hi, Allison. So remember to introduce yourselves when you're speaking.
Hi, Allison, the United States. Thank you for that great presentation and all you do. I was wondering if you could repeat the quote that you gave about planting trees. It took my breath away and I was trying to type it down.
It is a beautiful quote. So a society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they know they shall never sit. And that was really at the core of what we do. We know the impact. Unfortunately, well, I'm lucky. Dad's into over 10 years of his diagnosis. He hasn't been able to speak for about 5 years, but we're here fighting for everyone in the future, and that's the most important thing that we can do.